What's up, Frosties? So there's a lot of differences between Gloomhaven and Frosthaven, but I think something that's not been talked about enough is setup and teardown, which I know a lot of people are excited for the new classes and all this makes sense, but despite the fact this is like 10 pounds heavier and has so much more components, we've discovered through our first few play sessions that this one actually is a little bit faster. The box has an organizer in it. There's voids in this, so there's places where you can put other things to actually stop lid lift, which means you can actually get this box all of its components sealed entirely, which I've done, but I do a little bit differently than the way they tell you to, and I'm going to walk through those. But something we found is that was really important is that when we put it away, setup just happened so much faster, and we're going to go through our setup and teardown process as well as walking through that whole thing. Stephanie made apple crisp, and it's so much better than this. I am immensely disappointed. If you do want channel updates or early access to some videos, or just want to support us, check out our Patreon link below. All right, so let's get to it. So as I showed off in the unboxing, oh my goodness, this is heavy. There's a certain way they tell you to do it, but I've done it in a different order. As you can see, right here at the top, I've actually ended up putting the scenario flowchart here. The flowchart and all of the stickers that come with it, all 5, just work really well to kind of flatten the top and use that. So as you can see, when I say I don't have any lid lift, there's actually just a little smidgen of space here between this and the top. But this is the scenario flowchart is something that doesn't get used in play. So when we're setting up, we actually deliberately start to put pieces aside or nearby for use. So we're actually going to set this aside. That brings us to the terrain tiles. The terrain tiles I've sorted out by their type. So you can see we've got the ship here, we've got the big ones here. You have some of these turn ones here and the views here, so on and so forth. Since they're sorted at least by their shape, it's pretty easy to find them if you know what the shape looks like. And we take all of these out and set it aside. And now we're getting a little bit closer to how the box says to. You notice I haven't put the monsters. They do say to put the monsters at the top, and that's something I don't do. I do, however, put this organizer over to this side, and I do put the books over on the other side. So because we're going to start with an outpost phase, we're going to set these books aside for now. And that brings it here, where we have the alchemy chart, which I've already punched out some potions, so I don't want to reveal the other side. And the map, which I'm not going to fold out for us because, again, I already have a bunch of stickers on it. And that brings us to this mess. So, unfortunately, I have only done some organization below, but this does create a giant mess of monsters. And then we put those over here so we can access both the tokens and the overlay tiles. At this point, we have all these monsters, so we do generally as a group decide which one we're going to do next. And we do go through and actually set aside the monsters where we're setting aside all the other content and pick out the ones that we'll be needing for the first scenario. So here's something that's a little different. There's actually a void in here naturally. We just put all the dragons and demons in that area, which we've got earth demons and spitting drakes, I guess they're drakes, over in this area so we know where to find them. And since this area is normally meant to be a void, it's just weird to waste it. Additionally, there's a couple other voids in these areas that aren't used typically, so we filled those up with monsters as well. And now we're here. This should look very similar. At this point, we're kind of not deviating from the rest of the box. You have your items here, split into some locked stacks as well as some unlocked stacks. You have your various other things, which we won't get to because they'll tell you where they are, but they're like battle goals and other bonuses. You have your events, all split into various either summer, winter, or outpost, or road. And of course, we have the standees. We pull this out and put this over here for the outpost phase. This gives us access to all the events and all the items easily accessible for anyone at the table. At this point, we're at the bottom. I pull out the active building cards, the miniatures we'll be using, the health trackers, and then I go through and find the monsters. And then we pull out our characters. For the rest of the night, this box won't get used very much, so we just set it aside so it's not interfering with the table. So we set up our map, get out our building cards, and our event cards. So then we pull out our characters and begin the outpost phase. I'm still playing the Drifter, but I really like it. So this is something we actually leave out during the outpost phase, the L-Shapes organizer. This one actually gives us access to all of our items and all of our events, and it also gives us access to our Town Guard deck, yay. And as we finish the outpost phase, we pull the standy things out, the battle calls out, and we put the other items and things back in, and then this goes back into the box. And of course, we still leave our characters out. I want to say that there's a pretty big difference here, because Gloomhaven had all the things that were like needed at the bottom. So you had the monsters that were at the bottom, and then you had certain things on top of that. So we kind of just needed the whole box out there. Unless you like bought a third-party organizer, everything was just stored in the box in its own thing. This gives us little things, organizers, to take out and say, hey, we're leaving this on the table and we're just setting the box aside. At no point in time after this point, as we're referring to these, are we actually using the box and digging through the box. We're just actually pulling through some of these organizers, mostly this one. The other two organizers it comes with are really useful when you're actually in the dungeon part. So once we decide we're done, usually after 2 scenarios or like 3 hours or whatever, we start to put things away. Sorting the dungeon tiles out into shapes has really helped us tremendously, and I do think possibly having a better monster organizer system. I'm going to repack the box in the way that we found a way that it's actually pretty decently organized and there's no lid left, so I'll show that now. First, put away the classes and whatever monsters you used. Next, we put the L organizer back into the box. Now put the monsters where there are voids in the box. Remember to use this space if you're not using it for something else. Now that the voids are filled, I stopped putting the rest of the monsters in and go to the organizer. We put the organizer in the other organizer, yay, and give them their hats. And then we set it on the left side here. So this is again the part that we're to deviate. Doing everything on the part with the L organizer is fine, but then once we start filling the voids, the organizer in the game does not actually tell you to do that. And now put the rest of the monsters in. Now we put the books and the map on the other side that doesn't have the organizer here. Then I take the long dungeon tiles, the small dungeon tiles, the small corridors, and create a little stack next to this one. Then you put the rest of the dungeon tiles atop that one. Then take your flowcharts and fit them nicely atop it. Then slide the lid gently on. And boom, it's almost flush. There's a little bit of it peeking out right here in this corner, but it's a little bit less than 1/4 of an inch. Just giving it compartments and sections that you can take and remove has greatly helped us, first off, just have a much better experience. I know a lot of people are saying like, hey, you should have played Gloomhaven with an organizer, and I kind of did. Got a few of these things at Michael's. It was 50% off. Yay. Even with organizing Gloomhaven, this actually seems like with the outpost phase and everything, they should have more setup, and it feels at worst about the same, and if not, notably better. The first time we set up, we were a little confused, but then when we set up our second session and we kind of knew where everything was, it just came out very fast. We're like, oh, I guess let's just start, guys. And that's so much better, because I know Gloomhaven definitely, in so many groups, had this problem of, ugh, there's so much startup time. I'm not doing that again. It's better, and it's not necessarily because the game mechanics lent itself to less setup time, but they included a better default box that lends itself to better organization. So I hope this is helpful. If it was, be sure to drop a like and let us know what part of Frosthaven you're most excited about. Again, I'll be doing a lot more videos, especially guides. I actually have a couple planned. I talked about which ones I want to work on in the Discord and Patreon. If you do want to join our Discord, we have a wonderful community. I'll have a link in the description. And speaking of Patreon, thank you to all of our Inox tier patrons. You're all wonderful people. You make this channel happen, and I really appreciate your support. So thank you so much, and thank all of you for watching. Sup, Gloomer. If you do want, and hit that bell to get notified or something like that. No, man, you are this up.